Hey guys, I'm Karl. Welcome to my movie film show. Feel free to subscribe down below if you would like to, but it's finally that time of year. That time of year where everyone in the world tells you what their favourite movies of the year was. I even saw Barack Obama putting out a list of his favourite movies. No wonder growing a YouTube channel all about movies is one of the hardest things to do. Everybody under the sun has an opinion on movies and is sharing it all over the internet. Often why it's hard to get your head above water, but we're here today to discuss my top 5 worst movies of 2022. In 2022, it's been an interesting year for movies because it's had a lot more bad than good, in my opinion. Picking my top 5 worst movies was actually harder than picking my top 5 best movies because there was so much choice to choose from in terms of worst movies of 2022. But there was some big steaming piles of movies this year. So without any further ado, let's jump in with number 5. Number 5, I was debating back and forth on a couple of movies. But one movie for me stood out because it was a movie I was really looking forward to in 2022. That movie is Lightyear. Yes, Pixar's Lightyear. That kicks off my list of the worst movies of 2022. Not because of the lesbian kiss, I don't know why that annoyed so many people because it was such a minor scene within the movie. It's just because the movie was just bad. It was just boring. It was just an incredibly boring, terrible movie. At the time when I reviewed it, I titled it something along the lines of the worst Pixar movie in years, changed it to the worst Pixar movie since Cars 2 because someone in the comment section pointed out that Cars 2 was a thing. But yeah, it was really just a cash grab from Disney. It wasn't an enjoyable movie at all. I know Disney and Pixar movies are typically marketed towards kids, but as a kid who grew up in the 90s and watched the original Toy Story and fell in love with that whole Toy Story universe, and Toy Story 4 was terrible, Lightyear was something I was really looking forward to. I think a lot of parents would bring their kids to it because they loved Toy Story when they were younger, and the concept is really good. The trailer was really good. The build-up to it was pretty damn good, and I was very excited going to see it, and then ultimately it's just a build-up to a letdown. Just a terrible movie in the end. In at number 4 on my list of the worst movies of 2022 is Don't Worry, Darling. It's a movie that I did a review of and I was quite vocal of that I didn't enjoy the movie because it was bad. Olivia Wilde directed it and I liked her previous movie, Booksmart, but this movie, it was bad. I think that's going to be my criticism of all of them. I have a full review on the channel where I was more articulate with my criticism of it. I think, that's down to opinion. But Don't Worry, Darling is a movie that when it ended, I just sat there in the movie theater saying to myself, what the hell was that? Other people in the movie theater were just sitting there in silence. Not stunned silence from being amazed as I've seen in other movies this year. Just everybody going, what the hell? I remember when I went to go see it, I sat right at the back of the movie theater and I could see everyone else in front of me. And there was 2 girls off to my right. They were teenage girls. And they clearly went to see the movie because Harry Styles was in it. Because, they kind of elbowed each other and stuff when he came on screen. And perhaps it was a bit of a shock to the system when it was such a dark movie. It was very predictable in places, though. I don't think the twist was very good. You had that weird car scene with the 3 cars crashing into each other in a desert, even though they could have just gone any other direction. Very strange movie. And now we're getting into the top 3 worst movies of the year. Some of the worst movies we've seen this year, and there was some stinkers. And stinker number 3 is Jurassic World Dominion. What a terrible, terrible, terrible movie. And what a surprise. A terrible Jurassic Park movie. That's never happened before. Really, we should be surprised if we get a good Jurassic Park movie going forward. Jurassic World now. Surely this is the end of Jurassic World. It was just so terrible. They took a Jurassic World movie and focused more on locusts than they did dinosaurs. The dinosaurs were an afterthought in this movie. How ridiculous is that for a Jurassic World movie? On top of that, the story was just boring. It was just really boring. And it was pretty damn long as well. Again, when I went to the movie theater for this one, I remember just listening to people's reactions as I was leaving the theater and everybody saying the same thing. It was very long. It was very long. And I don't think the runtime was too long. I can't remember exactly. I'll check it out. I have this thing where you can check on the internet how long the movie is. We're the minion. Runtime 2 hours and 27 minutes. Certainly not the longest movie of the year, but one that felt like one of the longest movies of the year. Poor pacing really let the movie down, but as I say, the main criticism is that it's a Jurassic World movie that didn't focus on the dinosaurs, chose to instead focus on locusts. Just awful. Absolutely awful. Now the top 2, you would think would be very difficult to choose from. As I mentioned, there was a lot of contenders for the worst movie of 2022. Before I get into the top 2, I'll just mention some of my honorable mentions I have listed here on my piece of paper right here. So one that just narrowly missed out on the top 5 was a Netflix movie called Windfall, which I reviewed earlier in the year. It stars Jason Segel, Jesse Plemons, another woman whose name I can't remember, Lily Collins. Apparently her name was Lily Collins, who played the character of Wife. Oh, that's why I don't know who she is. She's been in basically just shit. Some of the other contenders I considered but narrowly missed out on the list include The Princess, which was a terrible movie that came out on Hulu earlier in the year. Spiderhead, which came out on Netflix, starring Chris Hemsworth and Miles Teller, and I just thought it was an awful, awful movie. And then the one which definitely could have been in the top 5, if not even in the top 3, is a movie called Uncharted, based on the hit video game Uncharted. The reason I found that to be one of the worst movies, and I know some people did enjoy that movie, it got a little bit of acclaim, but I think that's mainly because people just love Tom Holland. I'm a big fan of the video game series. I loved every bit of it. One of my favorite video game franchises of all time. Maybe that's the problem, is that I had built up these expectations in myself. When I watched the trailer, and I even did a trailer reaction here on the channel, I was really excited for it. Some of the visuals were fantastic. But the movie in the end is just a clusterfuck where they tried to take so many different elements from the 4 different video games, combine them all into one, and in the end it was just a mess where they tried to appeal to too many people. Like, hey, look, remember this in the video game? Well, yeah, I saw it in the video game. Give me an original Nathan Drake story. Especially when you got a much younger Nathan Drake. Overall, the story let that one down. The pacing wasn't great either. And it was just, in my opinion, one of the biggest letdowns of 2022. But it narrowly misses out on the list of the top 5 worst movies. And now let's jump into the top 2. Because in at number 2 is a movie called Amsterdam. And it's actually got nothing to do with the city of Amsterdam. In fact, they barely even feature the city of Amsterdam. It's a movie I watched fairly recently. It's only a couple of months old. And it's one of the most boring, dull, and lifeless movies I've ever seen. Which is absolutely shocking when you look at the cast. Because not only have you got Christian Bale, Margot Robbie, and John David Washington, you also had Robert De Niro, Mike Myers, Michael Shannon, even Taylor Swift popping up, Chris Rock in there. And of course, the film was directed by David O. Russell, who brought some great movies down the years, like Silver Linings Playbook. The trailer for the movie was absolutely electric. I saw it many times in the weeks leading up to the movie coming out. They had a phenomenal soundtrack on it, which now features on my Spotify playlist, which I listen to every day. And that was the best part of the movie, was the trailer. It's a common problem with movies. Like I was just mentioning with Uncharted. Uncharted had a great trailer, got me really excited for the movie, and then the movie was a letdown because all the best bits were in the trailer. With Amsterdam, the trailer had this electric pace to it. It had phenomenal music to it. It looked super exciting. And then the movie was just so slow and drab and boring. And the story was just terrible. It's another one, like I mentioned with Don't Worry Darling, where there was 2 young girls went and they clearly went to see Harry Styles on the big screen. In this one, when I went to go see it, there was 3 very young girls whose parents clearly dropped them off at the movie theater, bought them tickets for whatever they wanted to see. And like the girls couldn't be more than 14. And the movie is a higher rating than that. It might even be 18s here in Ireland. So they need parents' permission to get tickets. So the 3 girls are sitting up the back and Taylor Swift is in the movie. Clearly they went to see the movie because Taylor Swift is in it. The movie kicks off with someone's chest being torn open for an autopsy. You know, those very young girls let out an audible shriek when that happened. And then Taylor Swift's in the movie for about 5 minutes. Spoiler alert, she gets thrown under a car inside the opening 10 minutes of the movie. If you went to see that movie just to see Taylor Swift on the big screen, you were in for a shock. Then you had to sit through the rest of the movie, and that was just awful. But despite all that, that's not even the worst movie of the year, because in my opinion, in at number 1 on my top 5 worst movies of 2022 sits Roland Emmerich's Moonfall, a movie which came out the first quarter of the year. And I remember sitting in the movie theater, in an empty movie theater, because despite being a big push for this one, seeing ads for it everywhere and posters everywhere, and starring Halle Berry, literally a disaster movie. It's supposed to be a disaster movie, and the movie in itself was a disaster. Poor pacing, poor storytelling, just characters you don't care about at all. And the story just got more and more ridiculous as it went on. From the moon almost scraping the earth, and yet people still being alive, to it just suddenly becoming, hey, you know what? Space. Aliens. Let's do that. They basically did Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, where they got to the end of the movie and they're like, you know what? Aliens. Aliens did it. That's 2 hours and 10 minutes of my life I'm never getting back. And that's truly shocking because it comes from Roland Emmerich, the man who brought us the 90s version of Godzilla and The Day After Tomorrow and even 2012. How can a man who made all those... Oh wait, yeah, I should have known. I should have known. But they're my top 5 worst movies of 2022. Lightyear, Don't Worry Darling, Jurassic World Dominion, Amsterdam, and Moonfall. But this is where I throw it over to you guys, because I would love to know your top 5 worst movies of 2022. What movies you think were absolute garbage this year and you would highly recommend not checking out? Let me know all about it in the comment section below. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me, let me know in the comment section below, of course, as well. And if you're new here on the channel, I would greatly appreciate if you checked out one of these 2 videos or hit that subscribe button, because that's always pretty damn cool as well.